What's up, YouTube fragrance family? Tommy with Studio Sense here. Welcome to another day and another video. Today I picked out, curated, selected, whatever adjective you want to use, 5 fragrances that I think so far have been the best designer fragrances released, at least to date. So when we come back, we're going to go over those 5 fragrances, see if your picks might match up with mine. That and more is coming your way, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. As mentioned, today I'm focusing on 5 fragrances, my top 5 new releases in the designer fragrance arena that have been released in 2022 so far. However, it seems like, at least it seemed like at the beginning of this year, because there was so much going on, it seemed like we were living through a period of scarcity when it came to men's fragrance. But looking back on the new releases, that's just not true. There were quite a few new releases, you know, in the first 3 months of 2022. And let's take a look at a few of them here. Now, this just represents a few of the new releases. So what you're seeing here are not all of them. The ones that I've chosen, my 5 picks, weren't even in that kind of video example of some of the new releases for this year. Before I jump into what I've chosen as my top favorite 5 fragrances in the designer arena for this year, I do want to mention some of the new releases that I feel should be given an honorable mention, just because they're really, really good, but didn't quite end up in my list. The first one is Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privé. Fantastic example of boozy vanilla along with that light iris note. Excellent fragrance. I really dig the entire line. The Givenchy Gentleman line is great, but to add a boozy whiskey note in the fragrance was, I think, a masterstroke. Really close to ending up in this list. Definitely worth mentioning as an honorable mention. Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privé, fantastic fragrance. Next up is Bad Boy Cobalt. Bad Boy Cobalt almost ended up on this list too. You can tell that I've used quite a bit of it so far. I really like this fragrance. It's in some ways your typical blue fragrance, but that truffle note, there's a note of truffle in here, it's an edible, turns it into kind of an oriental fougere, and it makes it a really enjoyable fragrance. It's got that peppery bad boy DNA, but then it deviates with that truffle note, and just, I think it's probably the best bad boy to date. So Bad Boy Cobalt, there you go. Next up is another oriental fougere. It is Hugo Boss, the Scent Le Parfum. The Scent Le Parfum almost ended up in this list as well. I really dig that iris note in the fragrance, but it's so ephemeral, I guess is the word. Ephemeral meaning here for a few minutes and then gone, like a morning mist. If it had maintained that iris note throughout the life of the fragrance, it would be in this list. As it is, it definitely smells like the Scent, you know, oriental fougere fragrance, similar to Private Accord or Absolute. Still, overall excellent, dark, creamy, rich, cool weather fragrance. Next up is a spring and summer fragrance that surprised me how much I like it. It's a Lacoste fragrance, L1212 Blanc Eau Fraiche. This is a great minty, springy, youthful, energizing, invigorating kind of fragrance, and I really do like it. I just felt like there were some others. Again, I'm only choosing 5, and so it almost had a position but got beat out. But it's still an excellent fragrance and a great addition to the Lacoste line. A little bit better, in fact, than its predecessor, L1212 Blanc. Last I want to mention is Acqua di Gio Eau de Parfum. Probably should have been in my top 5, but it's Acqua di Gio. The Eau de Parfum is in many ways much better and much richer and much fresher, oriented towards that aquatic fragrance DNA that we all know and love, but I wanted to give some hang time to some newer fragrances, so there we go. Still a fantastic fragrance, definitely worth mentioning, but didn't make it my top 5. Let's go ahead and get into those top 5 though before time gets away from us. I'm going to do it in descending order, starting with my number 5. Coming in at number 5 in my top 5 new releases of 2022 for designer fragrances is Dior Homme Sport. Now, depending upon where you look, you'll see this as a 2021 release or as a 2022 release. It was just right on the edge to me. It's 2022, new fragrance for a new era. It is a sport fragrance. Typically, my bias is kind of revealed by what I've chosen here, with the exception of this fragrance. However, what I think sets this apart, and the reason that I chose it, that it ended up as number 5, is that it's such a fresh take on that sport kind of DNA that we're all used to. It's got a darker side to it. In the base, you've got some really nice woods You've got some frankincense that it leans back on, but it opens with a really fresh bergamot, lemon. There's some aldehydes that make it very dry, but drives that fragrance home when you hit that base of woods. There's a tinge of a green essence in this fragrance that really is like a tablecloth, turns it into a fresh, lightly green take on a sports fragrance, which is very different, very unique. That's why it's my number 5. Christian Dior Homme Sport 2022 or 2021. Coming in at my number 4 spot is a fragrance that I think is deserving of a higher spot, a higher position, just because it's so good. It's so eloquent, if a fragrance can be eloquent, which sure it can be. It's by Narciso Rodriguez. It is For Him Bleu Noir Parfum. The Parfum version of that Bleu Noir that has become pretty popular. For Him is a really great fragrance DNA, but I think it got better when you went to the Bleu Noir side of the line, and the Bleu Noir was great, kept getting better, and this particular concentration focuses on the note of iris. Orris butter, that iris in there, that light smell of wet concrete along with the pure strain of iris coming through the middle of that. In many ways, again, a standard kind of a blue fragrance in the background makes an epic combination. Extremely unique, extremely wearable, and excellent performance. Surprising performance, actually. Best in the line for a Parfum concentration. For Him Bleu Noir Parfum by Narciso Rodriguez, number 4. Coming in at my number 3 spot is a fragrance from Valentino in the Uomo Born in Roma line of fragrances. Very long name, Valentino Uomo Born in Roma Coral Fantasy. Coral Fantasy wins the worst named fragrance. Not only is it super long, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's not really an underwater aquatic fragrance, but what it is a very fresh take on an oriental fougere. From the opening of apple to the base of tobacco absolute, it's just a rich, lovely, long-lasting fragrance. Now, this one almost took number 1 because of how wearable it is. The performance on this is just as good as any of these, honestly. And you would think that one coming up here in a moment might beat it out, but it really doesn't. This has some epic, long-lasting performance, and it smells so good. It's very unique in the line that it's coming from and sets itself up as probably one of the best in the Born in Roma line. Valentino Uomo Born in Roma Coral Fantasy coming in number 3. All right, guys, we are up to number 2. My number 2 spot of favorite new release of 2022 so far is a Paco Rabanne fragrance. It is, yes, a 1 million flanker, 1 million Elixir. 1 million Elixir is in many ways what you might expect an Elixir to be. It's very dark, very rich. It's a little bit overpowering when you first spray it on, but honestly, the open isn't the best thing about this fragrance. It is so dark and rich and heavy that you have to allow it time to dry down. Once it dries down is when it begins opening up and presenting the best facets of the fragrance DNA. It does have a very nice apple Davana open. That unique heart of Damascus rose, osmanthus, and some other resins make for a really interesting mid, but primarily what you're getting is that vanilla and tonka combination along with a little bit of brighter apple. I'm really happy to say that the apple Davana combo in the open lasts into the hard and into the dry down, and that's what makes this unique. You're resting primarily on that rich, thick, heavy, weighted concentration of oils, and that makes this, in my book, the best 1 million yet, coming in at number 2. All right, we're down to my number 1 best fragrance of 2022 in the designer fragrance genre. I will say so far my list probably betrays my bias, which is that of the Oriental Fougere. I really like the darker, richer fragrances just because they're so unique and they tend to last a bit longer, so you get that performance that everybody's looking for. This one is no exception. It is the latest in a fantastic line of fragrances by Azzaro. It is Azzaro The Most Wanted Parfum. The Parfum version of The Most Wanted, which is edible, gourmand, fantastic gourmand fragrance, but this stands to be, at least in my book so far, as I've worn it for a couple days now, this stands to be an epic or the epic date night staple, the date night fragrance. Wanted by Night was I think this kicks it off the throne as the king of date night fragrances in the realm of affordable designer fragrances. This, when the price drops a bit, you know, when it's no longer considered a new release, is going to be an epic find and an epic buy. Azzaro's only focused on a few notes, trying to keep it simple, but of course there's quite a bit more in this, but primarily you're getting that rich red ginger in the open. You've got some woods, some light woods in the heart. Base of the fragrance continues that legacy or heritage of toffee and bourbon vanilla. So you got the vanilla toffee, creamy sweet. It's a creamy sweet powerhouse. This is a beast of a fragrance. The open is wonderful. The mid continues the conversation, and the base just is like bookends a fantastic fragrance DNA. And it is my number one so far this year, the Most Wanted Parfum by Azzaro. Well guys, how did I do in comparison with your list? Let me know if you would have chosen any of these as your favorites so far this year of designer fragrances, or if you would have chosen something else. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much though for stopping by and checking out today's fragrance list. And as always, thank you so much for your support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow.